Welcome to Chapter 5, Part 1, Selection of Human Resource Management. This is Dr. J. Kent Gregory, and I'll be taking you through the chapter in the book by Laura Portales. So let's move on to the actual discussion itself. So, Chapter 5, Selection. So, one of the first things to note, and we talked a little bit about this in the prior chapter with respect to the cost of recruitment. So the cost of the selection process, statistics vary, but U.S. Department of Labor has said it usually costs about $40,000 to conduct a search. So this cost includes the time, which is a soft cost, but the time that the members of the search committee, selection committee, um, or even if it's just one person, put into the selection, as well as the money spent on it. And so the money spent could be things like, the purchasing of software to compile and review and be able to search within the applications that are sent, but also can mean the flying uh, and the meals associated with the candidates who come in for the interview process. So lots of things go into that cost. So there are 5 steps in the selection process. The first is criteria development, where you're going to set up the criteria by which various candidates will be judged, and from which you'll choose the ideal candidate. And then application and resume review, uh, again based on that criteria. Interviewing, and then test administration if you're going to apply tests to the selection process. So the test administration could be cognitive tests, it could be personality tests, it could also be something like if someone was interviewing for a sales position, a sales test. And then the final step is making the offer. So here's the layout of the selection process. And again, this is taken directly from the book. So here you have all of those stages. So criteria development, which is determines sources of ASAO information, such as testing and interviews, developing a scoring system, etc. Application and resume review should be based on the criteria, as we said. The interviews themselves. So you should determine the type of interview you want to have. Write the interview questions. So have these prepared in advance, and, which is not always done, but that is a best practice. Then the test administration, the selection. So determine which selection method you're going to use. And this should obviously be done in advance, and then compare selection method criteria, and then finally making the offer. So use negotiation techniques, write the offer letter or employment agreement. So these are all important components to the selection process. So this is good to know for those of you all who would like to explore a career or know more about the HR management positions, but also for those of us who would be interviewing for a job. This is all really good information to know about what is actually going on with the people who will be interviewing you, or selecting your resume out of a pile of what could be quite a large number of resumes. So some key takeaways. So the selection process refers to the steps involved. There are 5 main steps in the process, which we talked about. Uh, and the criteria development considerations that you might keep in mind. So some example of criteria might include 2 years of experience managing, a budget of a certain level, a bachelor's degree in business or a closely related field, ability to work on multiple projects at once, problem solving ability, conflict management ability, ability to manage a team of 5 to 6 diverse workers, score of at least a 70 on a cognitive ability test, and score of excellent from most recent employer. So These are all samples of criteria that you may look for, but it gives you a good idea of where to start. Uh, and then you also might consider, and you would want to consider, quite honestly, fit issues. So you're looking for specific education and expertise, and at the same time looking for the fit within the company culture. So is the candidate going to mesh well with the company culture and with the existing employees, et cetera? And then reviewing resumes. And so you're going to want to develop a resume rating system. So with respect to internal candidates and external candidates, there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. So internal candidates, advantages, it rewards the contributions of current staff, can be cost effective because you're not going to do a external recruitment strategy. It can improve morale. And knowing the past performance of the candidate can also assist in knowing if they can meet the criteria. Disadvantages can produce inbreeding, which reduce diversity and different perspectives, may cause political infighting between people to obtain promotions, and can create bad feelings if an internal candidate applies for a job and then doesn't get it. And these are all very real concerns. External candidates, advantage, they bring new talent into the company. They can, or the organization, they can help the organization obtain diversity goals, and new ideas and insight are brought into the company. Disadvantages, the implementation of the recruitment strategy to get this external candidate can be expensive, can cause morale problems for internal candidates who may believe that they're uh, perfectly capable of the position, and it can take longer for training and orientation once the external candidate is hired. So key takeaways, first step in selection is begin reviewing the resumes. You have to develop the criteria by which you're going to do this. Some other tools that you can look at when you score the candidates are cognitive ability tests, which we've mentioned, credit checks, personality tests, and when you're developing your criteria for interviewing, determine the level the applicant needs to meet the minimum criteria. For example, a minimum score on a cognitive ability test or a minimum score on a personality test. And then you need to also consider the validity and reliability of your measurement tools. So validity refers to how valid the test is. Reliability refers to which selection techniques yield similar data or results over time. Got to set the criteria before the interview process starts. And then when hiring, there is the option of internal and external candidates, and you need to weigh the pluses and minuses of that for the particular position. So that ends part one, and we'll start part two next.